Hi, welcome to the next edition of playing Pokemon through some matches. And of course, today we're playing Kangaskhan EX. So, of course, the actual deck list, we have a little bit of Glass Trumpet, or a little bit of Ramp. We have our Kangaskhan's. We have our way to kind of reduce the damage with Bouffalant. And then we have our Searchers with Rotom. We have Hoothoot, Noctowl, pretty good cards there. We have Ursula. And also we have Heroes Cape is our choice for the Ace spec, which is a pretty good card. We have Iono in the deck to, get, help against certain matchups there. So we have Bouffalant. We also have our main card, which Kangaskhan EX. And then we have our Glass Trumpet. Pretty good card. And then we also, of course, have Iono. Yeah. So, in Crispin. So we could help ramp our stuff in Devolution since most of our Pokemon are stage 1 are basics. So they don't really matter. So that's kind of what we're doing today. I know this looked a little weird how this is actually playing out because technically when I recorded this, I did not have audio on. So I'm doing a cover over. So that's the deck we're trying out today. Our backup attacker, of course, is we have a Terapagos EX, which is our backup attacker. And no further ado, let's get into the gameplay. So first game we have against Charizard EX, I believe. And of course, we're going to use an Ultra Ball, try to find our namesake piece. So we need to get a Kangaskhan EX here. Yeah, so we grab that, we play that. And from there, I think we just need to do a switch, attach an energy, pass the turn after drawing some cards. And we have a Hoothoot, and that's pretty good for next turn. Now, I do make a slight mistake here on the second turn, where actually I think I evolve the Noctowl without actually having a Terra Pokemon. So keep in mind that you don't do that. That's a slight mistake. So they go ahead and Poffin. It reveals that it is a Dragapult deck, which is pretty tricky to actually. I think this would be a pretty bad matchup in general. Even though we can reduce the damage output by the opponent for quite a bit. He goes ahead and Ionas us, so we don't get our Noctowl, but we draw another one. Now we do draw Crispin, so we can ramp our Kangaskhan EX to be able to start attacking. Now in the situation, our opponent goes ahead and does another Poffin and gets a Badoo. I believe he does put the Badoo into the active, if I'm not mistaken here. Jamming Tower retreats the Duskull into the Badoo, and then he goes in and attacks me for no damage, but does prevent my ability to use spells. Now, since we are past the first turn, we can't, of course, use Fan Rotom effectively. So we attach an energy, we Crispin here. We grab 2 different energies. We put the grass energy, I think. No, yeah, the grass energy on the Kangaskhan. Now, like I said, I do evolve the Noctowl here, which is a mistake. I should have drawn 2 cards first to see if I actually get the Terra Pokemon. And yeah, so that's a mistake. So let me know when you hear that in the comment section, because that was a mistake. Yeah, so we draw, we swing, and we pass the turn. So our opponent does set up a pretty good turn, I believe, on his. So he's going to get to the point where he can get a Dragapult ready as we take our first prize, which is a useless card. Because you don't really want 2 Kangaskhan's. Because it does. Actually, I think we do set up the second Kangaskhan with the Crispin. Now, so the opponent here does evolve, puts the energy there, sets it up, gets rid of another Dreepy because he only needs 3. That's probably too many as is. He uses an Ultra Ball here. I think he gets a Dragapult, if I'm not mistaken. No, he gets the stage 1. So that's pretty decent for them. He goes ahead and evolves the one that has the energy on it. He goes digging. So the opponent is definitely setting up for a pretty good turn here. And he tries to maneuver and put our Bouffalant into the active. We notice that we already have a switch, so we do go ahead and use the switch. And I think we set our Kangaskhan down as well. Yeah, so we set up the Kangaskhan, set up the second Pokemon, which technically I guess you could argue is a mistake in this regard, because I think at the end of this he does end up it gives him the chance of KOing only 2 Pokemon while taking us out, right? And of course that is a huge downside of a Mega EX, right? So we draw a couple cards, we see the card we kind of want, which is a boss's order for next turn. And of course we get I think a decent amount of heads at one point, and maybe not this game, maybe the next, when it absolutely doesn't matter, which is kind of funny. But we do take a prize. And since we're single prizing, we are falling behind in some regard, because once he sets up a Dragapult, it's kind of, the clock is really on. So he shows us that he has a Dragapult in hand, because he puts it into the active. Now the opponent definitely should have, he healed us for the Dragapult. Or Dusknoir. Okay, so this is where I think he messes up a little bit. So he does evolve to a Dusknoir, but he should be KOing the Bouffalant out of our bench, so that way we turn off the 60 preventing damage, but he does not. Instead, he goes for a different Pokemon. I think he goes for the Kangaskhan in the active. Yeah, there's the evolve. So the opponent is setting up for an attack here. But yeah, so here's the damage, but I'm pretty sure he does the active. Yeah, we take a prize. And the opponent, I think that's incorrect by the opponent, though. I think he should actually be KOing a Bouffalant out of the bench. That way we take more damage. So the opponent's thinking about it. I don't think he does anything else this turn. I think he just attacks. I think he's trying to decide where he wants to put the 6 damage. I think he puts it on the Kangaskhan EX on the bench. And of course I'm reading to see if it prevents damage on the bench. And then I realized it doesn't really work for one. And also I don't think it works with Dragapult because it does negative counters. So the opponent plays a Cyclops, and then he just attacks. Like I said, the opponent should have hit a Bouffalant with that damage output, because now we're able to survive with 30 HP. And of course we put the energy on our Kangaskhan EX, trying to set up a second attacker. And we draw 2. I think we put the Bravery Charm on the one on the bench. Yep. Which is the right call. We retreat so that way maybe we could prevent damage. Which I guess it doesn't really matter, because the 200 damage probably would have been better. Actually, he would have Dusk Cyclops onto it. And there's no reason to Iono here to give him more cards. And when we really need high damage output, we don't get it. So the opponent draws. I think he evolves there. So he's going to set up his second Dragapult, which is actually the one that causes a pretty good turn for him. He sets up another Dusknoir. Again, he should be actually going for the Bouffalant. He should have done that originally, but he didn't. So that way he does 60 more damage to the active, but okay, he draws a card. Or I should say, what's it called? Bicycles? I think that's technically the term. He bicycles, looks top 2, takes 1, put 1 to the bottom. So the opponent Has 8 cards in hand, trying to decide. Yeah, plays a Ursaluna on the bench, plays a Fez, draws some cards off the Fez. No, he can't because I didn't KO anything last turn. But he's getting his second Dragapult ready, which is going to be a problem. For us, we definitely want to... There's not really a great scenario for us here, right? Because he's going to KO the Kangaskhan EX on the bench, which gives him 3 prizes. So we're down to 3. He finally decides to start attacking the Bouffalant, but I think at that point it doesn't matter. So we have 1 turn to kind of stabilize here, but we draw an Iono. Now there's definitely an argument here. Maybe we could Iono just so we can take him off of a good turn. So right now we're deciding if we want to actually Ursula on the bench and start setting it up. Of course we go for it because we figured if we could get an extra turn and Kangaskhan could take some medium-sized amount of damage, we can retreat it the following turn and put the Ursula and take up the last prize potentially. Here I forget to draw 2. And of course we get Tails. And we take 2 prizes down to 1, which this matchup is pretty close, honestly. But considering the fact that we lose basically because of having Mega EXs that cost 3 prizes, right? So I think the opponent here gets the Dragapult back, plays the Dragapult. Probably should have bicycled first, but I think he also I think he swaps out my Stadium, I'm pretty sure here, to turn off the charm. So that way it would be lethal, because otherwise right here it wouldn't be. Because we could easily, absorb a 160 hit and be okay. No, actually, no, we can't, right? It'd be 140. We would be at 10 HP. But actually, I think I guess multiple ways he would actually win this game, right? But I do think he turns off my charm. If I'm remembering correctly from the stream. Okay, there's the damage. He's going to put it on the Bouffalant. And I think the Ursula? And 2 Bouffalants. That's fine. So he does KO the Bouffalant. And there's the Jamming Tower, which turns off my charm. And now he's able to just do basically enough to KO 2 things here. So technically he would take 4 prizes. So we lose the game. So I don't think there's much we could have done differently. I guess we could have put the Ursula into the active, but we would not have been able to actually use it. So 0-1 with the first game. Let's go ahead and dive into the second. Now looking at the second game, we're facing Charizard EX. So this time we're going to go ahead and set up the Terapagos EX, which allows us to use the Noctowl next turn. So we go ahead and draw 2 here and pass the turn. Actually, we get a Bouffalant, which is pretty good. Now I think we just pass, yeah. Because we want to draw another card to see if it's worse than the Iono. I think we're definitely going to be pitching the Glass Trumpet and something else next turn. Now this is I think a very quick game because we do get ahead way too fast. And the opponent just kind of scoops. So our goal here, I think, is to actually Noctowl, get a Crispin, and go ahead and go for lethal quicker and enable this Kangaskhan to attack. So that's our main plan. He Poffins. And he gets a Pidgey and a Charmander, which is statistically correct because you only need 1 Pidgey. So our main priority now, I think, is to go for the Pidgey because that is the setup piece, which is the most important piece for them. All right, so we do draw that. We go ahead and Noctowl first. And we go ahead and, I believe, grab a Crispin. And then we grab a Nest Ball. Sure. So the Nest Ball is, I think, to grab a Bouffalant. Yep. And that allows us to take less damage. Now we Crispin, setting up our active to be an attacker this turn. Sadly, though, we don't get it to the point where we can KO the Pidgey this turn. But we do set him back quite a bit. So there's nothing, I don't think we Ultra Ball here. So we just attack. Yeah, here's when we get the weirdly like extreme amount of heads, right? But it doesn't matter, we get it. We get a Kangaskhan EX, which is arguably not a great top deck. And then they put a Charmander in the active. Now, they have a very slow start. They go ahead and they evolve the Pidgey. And I think they do one other thing before passing back. Because I think they go back, I think they go down to 4 cards or 5 cards, one of the two. Okay, Curse Catcher. So they do that. I think they put the put the Terapagos into the active. And they put the energy there and they evolve the Pidgey to the Pidgeotto, which is the Pokemon we're going to target. So our first line is we draw a switch, immediately use the switch, and then we draw 2. Because we really are trying to find a boss's order to take out the Pidgeotto. So we put the energy on the Terapagos, and we pitch, I think, Ultra Ball and Trumpet. No, the Kangaskhan. And for us, we're trying to grab a Noctowl. So we could evolve, take a boss's order, and get the Pidgeotto off the board so that way he can't really stabilize. And we also just kind of want to grab something else that works with the situation. We grab a switch, I believe, yeah, because we want to make sure in case he does a boss's order to take us off the offense, we can get back onto the offense. And we get frisky. A little frisky. And I think this is what makes him scoop, if I'm not mistaken. Because once the Pidgeot is off the table, like in his current position, he has no shot at coming back, right? It would take a miracle. Iono, not some card we actually want to play. We will definitely never cast that because we are ahead on board state and we don't want him to get out of the current position. So the opponent places a energy to the bench and gets rid of the stadium. So we put an energy there, so we have a backup attacker, draw 2, and they scoop. So 1-1. Let's get into the next match, which is going to be a lot more grindy. So this is the really grindy matchup. We're facing Goldingo, which with the new fighting package, sub-package. Weirdly enough, here we grabbed the Hoothoot. We should have probably grabbed the Bouffalant, but we already have 2 in hand. We definitely overextend our bench real quick, which arguably is a bad thing in case we top deck anything of relevance to cast. So that ends up being a little bit of a problem. I should not have went this extreme on the Hoothoots, but I figured we have 2 Noctowls. We should be able to get the stadium and set up multiple cards on the bench, but that ends up backfiring on us because I think the Iono, which resets our hand, and we don't have the Noctowls. I'm pretty sure that's what occurs. Or actually, I think they KO a Hoothoot. Yeah, I think they KO a Hoothoot, which ends up being our demise a little bit. Because, all right, so they grab a way to enable free retreat. They put an energy there, and I think they actually just, they get 2 energies. And there's the metal energy they need. Now for us, it's our turn. We draw the stadium, so we don't need to get it with the Noctowls. And the Poffin's useless, which is why I said it was kind of bad to get all the Hootoots. But, you know. So we get a Crispin to set up our attacker and a Nest Ball. I think here we grab a Kangaskhan, yes. And then we go ahead and Noctowl again, allowing us to grab some a little bit more utility pieces. I think we grab, yeah, Nest Ball and a Cape. Yeah. We put the Cape on the Terapagos, and we get this set up so we can basically attack this turn. I think we grab a Ursula. Yes. And we smack. So he's able to set up the other Goldingo, which is absolutely bad for us, and starts actually becoming aggressive himself. We top deck the Noctowl, and this is when he KOs the Hoothoot, which turns off my ability to use Knockout. So we're reading the Opal to see if it's worth actually investing our energy into the Opal. And then we don't go for it. But so the opponent's able to start doing some setup. And they're able to, I think, use Catcher and bring up the Hoothoot. All right, and then I set up a second Goldingo, which is pretty interesting here. Boss's, okay, they use a boss's order for the Hoothoot on the bench. And they go ahead, and I think they do one more thing before they actually attack. I'm not mistaken here. Okay, there's the energy retrieval. Gets a couple energy back, I think. And they do calculate correctly. They need to discard 3 energy for this knockout. Okay, so we could put the Terapagos back into the active, and we're unable to use our Noctowl, which really would have set up a pretty good turn for us. We get a Super Rod. I do think we end up using it. No. Yeah, we just attack first. We do it next turn, I think. So the opponent, I guess, stopped like, what, 30 extra points of damage. So I don't think really the KO mattered, except for the fact that they turned our Noctowl off. So the opponent draws more cards, gets some more fighting energy. Now, this definitely is a decent package with all the fighting stuff, because, I mean, having the Lunastone does a lot of work, since you do have a lot of energy and you really wanted to draw into your retrievals, which is quite nice. So I think it does do a really good job in the deck. I mean, it's definitely not, I don't think this is the version that plays with Cario, but it's still a very spicy thing. And they get a Genesect here so they can get the other Goldingo and set up the Goldingo. And they set up the next few cards. Now I think they use coin bonus, yeah, to draw 2 cards. And then they use Genesect's ability. And they evolve 1, and I think they use a retrieval. So this turn, I believe they do KO my Terra, right? Terapagos, which I think is a problem for me, but so they go ahead and use Vessel. Gets more energy, and they keep getting, I think they do one more thing with the energy, so that way they have enough to KO the Terra, which for, I think, 340, I believe, is what they do to it, and they KO it, and we were never able to get anything going past that, and yeah, so that's basically our demise. So that one KO to the actual Hoothoot was actually kind of the end of us, because they're able to get 2 prizes here. They have a gigantic hand, and we're never able to stabilize. So they go down to 1 card. And we go ahead and get rid of Fan Rotom and a Noctowl, I believe. Yep. And then put the Kangaskhan on the active so we could draw 3. Or draw 2. We look here in case we could see if we get Bloodmoon. But we can't. So we put the other one into the active to draw 2. So at this point we're struggling. At this point I believe we do use the Super Rod. And we put 1 energy and Hoothoot and a Noctowl into the deck. Draw 2. Attach 1 energy. I don't think we actually catch her. We just say go. We can't do anything really. So they coin bonus. And coin bonus again. And they pick up the one that has high amount of damage. They put the other one into the active. They evolve again. Draw 2. And they put the metal energy, I think, attached to Goldingo. I think they have double retrieval here, if I'm not mistaken. No, they pass because next turn they get it. All right, so we do one more energy. We kind of just draw 2, trying to find anything here. We get a Hoothoot that allows us to do something next turn. Now we're contemplating Iono because, I mean, they very well could have something here. I think we do end up doing Iono. Yep. Yep. Trying to disrupt their game plan a little bit. We attach a charm. And we pass the turn. So hoping that next turn we could actually start to set up a Kangaskhan EX attack and hopefully get at least a heads or 2 so we can KO. But of course they find another fighting energy, or actually Soul Rock. Arven for, I think, retrieval. Yes, and a balloon. And I'm calculating how much they can get back and how much damage they could do this entire turn with that retrieval. So they go ahead and I think they draw 2, and they, of course, switch. They draw 2 more. They evolve, I think, the KebbieG. Actually, yeah, they pick up a metal energy for attacking purposes. And they throw 2 cards away, pick up 4 energy. And it's the whole time I'm calculating And I'm like, there's my face turning as I'm like, oh my gosh, how much damage are they doing this turn? And yeah, and here comes the KO. So yeah, 390, and we lose. So 1-2 record, not a bad record. I mean, this deck is pretty sweet, but let's get into the wrap up. So Kangaskhan. What do we want to speak about the deck overall? It feels pretty solid, to be honest. Like it has its moments where I think it's actually a very decently competitive deck. I just don't think we could really face Goldingo like that. We need probably more things to actually combat that one. And overall, I think the first matchup, like we lost a Dragapult, which is a little tricky. Mega Kangaskhan felt pretty solid though. Two of them, pretty good number, so we don't get them prized. The rest of the package feels pretty solid. I do think I want at some point to maybe look into a colorless single prizer, right? So that way maybe we could set up something that can get us a prize or two without giving up too much prizes. But as it showcased, like the 3 prizes did matter, especially against Dragapult. If you would have something that can maybe KO a Dragapult, that necessarily wouldn't give them a 1 prize, we would actually had a shot there at beating Dragapult. So I am kind of curious what you guys think about this list as a whole. The list is in the description, and I'll talk to you guys next time.